Can you believe it? A legendary superstar has actually transformed into the leader of a cult. A female journalist managed to escape. She wants to write a book to expose the truth, but instead she ended up promoting them. This female journalist is Serafina. She is highly capable, however, due to issues related to her skin color and seniority. Even if she has an excellent idea, she can only submit the idea and let her colleagues write it. This makes her very unhappy. She can't help but want to complain to her friend. As a result, her friend not only can't empathize with her, but also directly states that her problem actually lies in her being very mediocre. She didn't grow up in extremely poor or wealthy conditions, and she is healthy and has a harmonious family. So much so that when she does things or writes books, simply can't offer any unique perspective, to put it bluntly.
Okay. Well, with love and compassion, I don't think anyone gives a fuck about what you feel.
These words undoubtedly stabbed Serafina right in the heart, but she hadn't been feeling sad for long when she heard a rumor from her colleague. The legendary superstar Lucian is about to return. You know Lucian. He is not only the only living artist to have 38 #1 singles, however, since he disappeared mysteriously 30 years ago, no one has seen or heard from him ever since. Everyone was shocked by Lucian's comeback, and not long after, they saw Lucian's public relations manager released a video saying that Lucian will soon release a new album, and this weekend Lucian will invite some people to attend his small-scale concert. Unexpectedly, Serafina is also on the invitation list. Serafina never expected that not only would a pie fall from the sky, but it would directly hit her on the head. Besides being surprised, she quickly collected a lot of information related to Lucian. She wanted to catch up on knowledge frantically. There were also 5 other people invited. They were Serafina's boss Gideon, the sexy host Vivian, the top paparazzi Isolde, the internet celebrity Elon, and the famous blogger Orion.
To be honest.
What do you mean? Why would he miss the event of the century?
They hated each other.
Serafina therefore felt that this business trip wouldn't go smoothly. Unexpectedly, the next second, Gideon said that for this job, he was the one who would write the review article, and Serafina's job was to take notes, recording everything she saw, then organize it into a book and hand it to oneself. Soon everyone took a bus and passed through the desert. They arrived at Lucian's place of residence, and outside his residence, a large group of loyal fans had already gathered since they learned that Lucian was going to release a new album. They rushed here even though there were hardly any hotels or inns nearby, and they could only sleep in their cars. They didn't even consider leaving at all. They just hoped to catch a glimpse of Lucian's demeanor. Serafina was deeply touched by this. She had no idea that Lucian's lair was full of dangers, and she almost lost her life. After getting off the bus, the butler found an excuse to take away their mobile phones. He also said that this was to ensure the integrity of this event so that they could be more engaged. Everyone obediently complied. Immediately, they all received a porcelain bottle as a souvenir. Soon night fell. After getting dressed up, Lucian finally made a grand entrance. First, he gave everyone 84,000,023,65,000,000,238,133 not really funny, humorous speech. Serafina thought it was just so-so, but during the speech, the staff in the venue were very cooperative. Not only did their eyes focus entirely on Lucian, they could always laugh like pigs at his strange punchlines. Lucian named his new album Caesar's Request. He hoped that everyone would like it. Serafina's mood was somewhat indescribable. She always felt that the people here 95,000,254,066,000,255,733 worshipped Lucian in an extraordinary way. And because Lucian only left 5 seats beside him, Serafina had to offer her seat voluntarily. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, a little girl named Celia 000300033003001,233. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a little girl named Celia invited Serafina to sit with her. Serafina went gladly, but she never expected that before the meal began, the staff actually served them a large loaf of bread. They said that everyone should take a bite and then keep passing it backward. Serafina was sitting in a very bad position in that case. By the time the bread reached her hands, no one knew how much saliva of others it had already been in contact with. Under the gaze of everyone, Serafina finally reluctantly took a small bite. Then she quickly adjusted her mood. She wanted to interview the man sitting next to her to find out how he got here and how he got to know Lucian. As a result, Atticus' answer was simply astonishing. He is a music teacher. Just because during the class received a call from his idol Lucian himself and then came here. At that time, Lucian specifically told him not to tell anyone about this. Serafina was extremely shocked, and Brother Chiao really listened to his idol. He didn't even tell his workplace. The next morning, he boarded the plane alone. Here, Brother Chiao and the others received teachings from Lucian. They complied with all the hierarchical standards. Serafina was very speechless. She immediately wanted to mark in her little notebook that Brother Chiao was definitely a sycophant. Just then Lucian suddenly appeared.
Doesn't sycophant have an O?
Serafina was extremely embarrassed. Then the butler ran over. He arranged a full-time concierge staff for each of them. Serafina thought this was a bit exaggerated, and when he was resting in the room, the concierge lady in charge of him brought a chair and sat at his door keeping watch over him. This is really frustrating. Serafina wanted to play some music to relieve her emotions. She didn't know that there were already surveillance cameras installed in the room. Every move of her and other invited guests was being watched by someone in the monitoring room. On the other hand, that Orion, who had a grudge against Lucian. Actually, during the massage, he was pressed down on the massage chair by someone and then Serafina was going to do morning exercises. As a result, wherever he went, the braided lady who was in charge of entertaining him would follow. She was really inseparable from him. This made Serafina feel very uncomfortable. And then he discovered that during the morning run, everyone he met actually had a smile on their face, but there was something creepy about that smile. Not long after Serafina bumped into Lucian, Lucian was very friendly to her. Serafina didn't want to hide anything. She directly asked Lucian about the religious and hierarchical beliefs here. When did he establish them? Lucian couldn't help laughing. He said that he was just an ordinary member. Serafina was half believing. She then asked if they would do something together, just like how Catholics go to Mass and Muslims pray towards Mecca. It seemed that for all religions there are things that believers do together.
Then what do you call a group that does nothing together?
Lucian laughed so hard he immediately decided to show Serafina something new. There was indeed something that everyone here did, that was to shock oysters in the oyster room. They call it diving in. The goal is to find a pearl when shocking. Of course, they also know that the probability of finding a pearl is very low, but even though their hands are often scarred, they never thought of giving up. Serafina was stunned. She really couldn't understand what the point of all this was. Lucian said, however, that a single pearl is more valuable than all the empty shells, and the balance in the world doesn't mean that everything is equal. Serafina was very confused. She then went back to her room and took a shower. Just as she finished, she heard a knock on the door. She quickly went to open the door. Unexpectedly, a large group of people rushed in. Serafina was very surprised. She quickly asked them what they were here for.
We're gonna make you look like the best version of...
The leader Lyra said that they had only one goal, that is to make Serafina look like the best version of herself. Then they all rushed forward and started to do all kinds of dressing and grooming for Serafina. Serafina reluctantly accepted it, but she never expected that Lyra actually came up and wanted to take care of her secret garden. Serafina was stunned on the spot, but Lyra said that this was Lucian's requirement for tidiness. Everyone had to do it. Serafina was extremely shocked.
Does he have plans to see?
Even so, Serafina still didn't want to cooperate, but Lyra was really persuasive. She easily convinced Serafina. Lyra said that those big shots and celebrities who had ever tried to make contact with Lucian, in the end they all accepted Lucian's shaving arrangement. Serafina felt like a fish on the cutting board. After the hair shaving was finished, Serafina, in a bad mood, went to find Vivian and the others. She wanted to know if they were all in the same situation as herself. Having accepted Lucian's special arrangement, it turned out that they were indeed in the same situation, and their concierge staff were always following them. This made Serafina feel a little more at ease. But not long after she found that one of them was missing. Brother Chill explained that Orion had suddenly gone for a massage. He was probably going to arrive later. The group then walked into a banquet hall. They were ready to enjoy Lucian's new song performance on stage, but surprisingly, as the comeback stage of a legendary superstar, this performance was not only of worrying quality, but also filled with a lot of sexually suggestive actions and lyrics. Although Lucian's supporters watched attentively without taking their eyes off, but Serafina beside them rolled her eyes so hard that they almost went to the sky. Suddenly, Elon felt a bit unwell. Unexpectedly, upon seeing this, Lucian quickly interrupted the performance. He asked someone to send Elon to the doctor for a checkup. He said that she was probably affected by the altitude. Beichio quickly did as told Serafina, and the others then left the scene. At this time, Serafina secretly asked Vivian, based on her understanding of Gideon, if she proposed to write a supportive article about the Equalists, would Gideon be furious? On the spot, as a result, Vivian actually told her even if Gideon is a jerk, but if she has a real story that she wants to tell, Gideon can't stop her either. So Serafina immediately found her superior Gideon and said that she wanted to write an article. Talk about the thoughts in his heart during this period. He also clearly stated that it would definitely not have any impact on Gideon. But Gideon just wouldn't listen, even though he, like Serafina, thought that there was something cult-like about Lucian's place, but for him, that didn't matter. He just needed to write a good story and then publish it. As soon as he finished speaking, Gideon was accidentally injured by a child playing with a sword. Serafina was extremely frightened. Tens of thousands of feelings of unease flashed through her mind. However, the injured Gideon and Vivian, they all regarded this as an accident. Serafina was very scared. She said that they were now not only in a desolate desert where nothing grows, but their phones and computers had also been taken away. They completely couldn't get in touch with the outside world. What's even worse is that there were always people watching them. Even the room where they slept might already be under surveillance. And among the people who came here together, some had already gone missing and others were injured.
Is it possible that what happened to you wasn't an accident?
The more Serafina thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. She asked Vivian insistently what exactly happened when she said that Orion had a grudge against Lucian. Before Vivian said that, Orion had once made fun of Lucian in an interview because after Lucian's Doberman died, he had it made into a specimen. This statement aroused Serafina's suspicion. So early the next morning she secretly slipped out of her room. She wanted to look for some clues. Unexpectedly, not long after Serafina left, she was discovered by the concierge staff outside the door. She immediately launched a search, and at this moment Serafina had successfully sneaked into Lucian's specimen room. In there were not only specimens of various styles, but also the mobile phones of Serafina and the others that had already been discarded. Serafina was extremely anxious, so much so that she didn't notice at all that actually Orion's body was lying not far away. Even so, Serafina still decided to run away immediately. However, before she could walk out of the gate, she was surrounded by a group of people. Considering that the gap in strength between the enemy and herself was too great, Serafina didn't want to fall out with Lucian. She just kept saying that she wanted to leave.
No, I'm not, explaining anything. Just,
Lucian readily agreed. He immediately arranged for the butler to send Serafina away. But the butler said that the car had just been arranged for Elon to take her to the hospital for a checkup. Serafina would probably have to wait for 40 minutes. Serafina was very speechless at this moment. Celia, who had invited her to have a meal before, suddenly spoke up. She said that she was about to perform a puppet show. She hoped that Serafina could watch her performance before leaving, considering that the performance venue was very close to the door and she had nothing better to do. Serafina agreed. She never expected at all that there was actually a person hiding in the lazy sofa she was sitting on. Serafina and the others were extremely frightened. And then Elon actually emerged from the lazy sofa. And the next second, Lucian rushed forward directly and burst his eye. Serafina was startled by the popping out eyeball. Gideon immediately wanted to escape in the chaos, but after all he was alone, and week before long he was in the same situation as Serafina and the others. They were all subdued. They tried to resist. As a result, not only did Gideon's head hit the window glass and bleed profusely, Vivian also had her scalp torn. However, even if they sat there obediently, Lucian didn't intend to let them go. Gideon and Isolde were quickly killed. Although Serafina was very lucky, she managed to slip away. But there were too many people chasing her. Before long she was cornered into a villa, and she accidentally discovered that Orion's head had been cut off by Lucian. It had already been turned into a specimen. Serafina was horrified. She wanted to escape from this villa. However, before she could go downstairs, Sister Braid rushed over. In desperation, Serafina had to first hide in the bathroom. She locked the bathroom door, but Sister Braid actually broke in through the window directly. Serafina struggled and resisted desperately, but she was still not unconscious by Sister Braid. Serafina and Vivian were finally tied to chairs. Lucian was ready to sacrifice them at any moment. However, just then an accident occurred. At the crucial moment, Lyra suddenly turned against them. She not only replaced the ordinary wine with high concentration alcohol, but also pretended to feed Serafina wine, while quietly cutting his ropes, and told him the escape route. In surprise, Serafina obediently did as she was told. Lyra then took the opportunity to knock over the brazier. She used the alcohol to set fire to Lucian's robe. Lucian was in great pain. Serafina immediately took the opportunity to grab a motorcycle and quickly fled. Soon Serafina escaped from Lucian's residence, but at this time Sister Braid had also chased after her. In desperation, Serafina had to knock down with one punch.
So we have
A fan who was lying in wait beside, keeping track of Lucian's whereabouts. She took his car and drove away rapidly. Sister Braid was extremely angry. She could only watch as Serafina successfully escaped finally. In the end, Serafina, relying on her personal experiences during this period, wrote a book and directly reached the peak of her life. However, Serafina still has a lot of things that she hasn't figured out. When he led the police back to the crime scene, Lucian didn't run away. Instead, he was sitting there playing the piano. In front of him lay the bodies of Gideon and the other 4 people. Sister Braid and the others had all disappeared, and why did Lyra help herself escape in the first place? 2 years have passed. The police still haven't found Sister Braid and the others or their bodies. At this moment, Serafina suddenly received a call. It was from Lucian's public relations manager saying that Lucian wanted to have a good talk with him. Serafina agreed immediately and quickly appeared in front of Lucian. It turned out that Lucian had read the book he wrote. However, he didn't show any signs of chagrin or remorse. He only cared about one thing, because when Serafina described their first meeting, he wrote the wrong color of his boots. Serafina was extremely shocked by this. However, he didn't expect either Lucian to act like a normal person, so he directly asked about the truth of what happened back then and also where exactly Lyra and the others had gone. But Lucian kept saying some ambiguous things and said something like he should get to know his own masterpiece. Well, after all, it was precisely his book. While exposing himself, it also promoted his own cult. As for why Seraphina was chosen, it's simple in Lucian's opinion. Seraphina is a pure vessel. She hasn't been corrupted by so-called success, nor has she resorted to some cheap means. For the so-called online click-through rate, Seraphina was very shocked. She completely didn't expect it. She had no idea at all that she was chosen for such a reason. Also, her own book actually made things develop into what they are now. Now, Atticus and the others are disguising themselves as ordinary citizens lurking in all levels of society, waiting to start a new fire. The deadly work actually tells the story of a female writer. She bravely breaks into the investment base of a celebrity cult. After successfully escaping, she writes a novel and reaches the peak of her life. But then she discovers that her novel is actually helping the cult leader to spread his teachings. The whole movie gives people a feeling that makes them shudder. When they think about it carefully, it makes a scathing satire of celebrity worship. However, there are too few details and foreshadowings as a result, although the overall ominous atmosphere is well created. When it comes to the depiction of the cult, it still lacks a certain degree of persuasiveness. It feels that in terms of the narrative rhythm and the explanation of the plot, it could have been done more excellently. Well, that's the end of today's plot. See you in the next episode.